77 and China, within the G77 and China, we also have the African group, we have the Arab group, we have the like-minded developing country group, which is one of the newer groups that came about in 2012. We also have ILAC, the Association of Independent Latin American and Caribbean States, as well as BASIC, which is a grouping of Brazil, China, India, and South Africa. So there's various ways in which these groups interact in the process, and they're not all the same. On the developed country side, we have three major groups. We have the umbrella group, which is the United States, Australia, New Zealand, Canada, Japan, Norway. Um, Russia used to be a part of the umbrella group, but they were famously thrown out after the invasion of Ukraine. We also have the European Union, which consists of the European Union 27 states, and the Environmental Integrity Group, which consists of states like Switzerland, Liechtenstein, Monaco, Mexico, Korea, and Georgia. So it's quite a complex lay of the land in terms of who is who, where states lie. There are some states, for example, like Turkey, that are kind of on their own because they're not members of the G77 and China, but they don't consider themselves a developed country, so they haven't joined any of the developed country groups. They had been trying for many years to accede to the EU, and their application was not successful. And after that, that left them in a bit of a limbo. So we have yet to see what they do. And we have the United Kingdom, who after Brexit finds themselves also without a group. And we also have yet to see what the United Kingdom is going to do in terms of whether they will continue to negotiate just as the UK, or whether they will find themselves in the umbrella group or try to form a different group. So that's a bit of the who is who. So the role of the IPCC. So the IPCC as an organization was established more or less at the beginning of the negotiations on the original convention. The IPCC actually came into being before the convention was agreed. At that time, there was a clear acknowledgement that you would need an independent assessment of the climate science in order to inform the political discussions that would be taking place in the context of the UNFCCC and the political system that was set up to manage this issue. So we have the first assessment report, which was delivered in 1990, which was, it's still very accurate. But if we look at some of the high level points contained in the first assessment report, we can see that they are a lot more tentative than some of the statements that we have now that we're at the sixth assessment report in 2023. So this is just to show a bit of progression in terms of how the messaging coming from the IPCC has gotten, one, a lot more specific as technology, especially in relation to modeling, has advanced. And two, I would say the messaging has also become a lot more urgent. So the IPCC has moved from acknowledging and forecasting now basically to providing scientific research and conclusions that move us along a lot further in terms of understanding the policies that we will need to have in place to respond to the crisis. So for this assessment report, it's very clear the climate crisis is here, it is ongoing, it is happening, that we need to peak global emissions in the next 2 years in order to limit warming to 1.5 degrees Celsius in line with the objective of the Paris Agreement, that we already have many of the tools that we will need to halt warming by 2050, and that they're cheaper than fossil fuels, and that widespread loss and damage as a result of climate change impact is already happening today. So I just want to highlight, I'm going to highlight here two images taken directly from the IPCC report. This one, I remember how I felt the first time I saw it. I remember I felt dread because what it shows, and I have 3 points on the side there, is that everyone alive today will experience dangerous climate change impacts. Some of us are already experiencing them to greater or lesser degrees. If we continue on the current path, all children born in the last few years will experience a vastly warmer planet with more extreme events, sea level rise, food insecurity, drought, and other impacts, and that the decisions we make now will have a profound impact on the lives of those already alive today. Um, what I think this graph really clearly illustrates is how important and critical it is for us to make the right policy choices today, because of the very narrow window within which we're operating, and because of the impacts that are going to occur within the lifespans of many of us, and certainly within the lifespans of those born in the last 2 or 3 years. I feel as though there is still a bit of sluggishness, especially in this region, in understanding that climate change is an issue for today and not something for the distant future. When many of us will already have transitioned on to maybe another plane of existence. It's actually right now, and it's for all of us right now. So this graph shows, and this is my last graph taken from the IPCC. They tend to be a bit complex, but if you look at them closely, they do transmit a lot of information. So this is one focusing on the fact that we have a rapidly narrowing window of opportunity to enable climate resilient development. Two key messages here. There are pathways still open for climate resilient development to get us onto a 1.5 degrees Celsius consistent warming pathway. We're currently headed to at least 3 degrees of warming. We are at present at 1.1 degrees above pre-industrial times, and we're already seeing the impacts of that. So a 3-degree warmer world is not one that any of us would want to live in. And the second key message here, I think, is that the policy choices in the short term can either constrain or enable the shift toward climate resilient development. So in that menu of options that are available, we already know which ones will make it more difficult for us in the long run and which ones will ease our path. And then my final slide, what is the relationship between the policy, so the governance of the global climate process, and the climate science? Well, this is demonstrated in the context of the Paris Agreement ambition cycle. So the Paris Agreement sets up a cyclical 5-year process that allows for the climate science to feed in and inform not just decisions that are taken, but individual country actions in terms of the level of actions that countries will take and include in their nationally determined contributions. And it does so through a stock take. So countries have already submitted, I think, at least 2 rounds of NDCs, starting with their initial NDCs before the Paris Agreement came into force, and then the NDCs that they confirmed. We know that the collective level of effort is insufficient. As I said, we are not on the right path. We're on the path to a 3-degree world. We have the first of the 5-yearly global stock takes concluding this year. And this is a seminal moment for us. This is the first opportunity to test the logic of this ambition cycle. The stock take is supposed to let us know exactly where the gaps are and also point us in the direction of what we can do and what needs to be done in order to close those gaps. And it allows for a significant high-level political moment for heads of state to get together and say, this is how we will respond. And that response is supposed to take the form of new and enhanced nationally determined contributions, enhanced implementation to achieve the highest possible levels of ambition, and hopefully lead us to the point where we can have a peaking of global emissions by 2025 and shift to zero emissions, net zero, by the second half of this century. So by 2050, that's the pathway that we need to be on if we want to avoid the worst and most dangerous impacts of climate change. So I'll stop there. Thank you very much